Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be painting the Tamiya Pak40 gun in 1/35th scale. So before I went at this with any paint, I gave it a base coat of Vallejo surface primer in white, and this just meant that all the paints would stick properly and I'd have a good idea of how everything looked. So then once I had the primer on and it had dried, I then coated it in a layer of Sandgrau by Ammo. I don't have the biggest paint selection. I'm relatively new to the hobby, so I only have a small selection of paints, and I kind of wanted to go with a desert camo, and that seemed to be the best one to go with to give the most realistic look. I then went by painting all the different little details on it, like the gun cleaning rods on the side and the shovel on the front, and also there's a cylinder mounted on the bottom shield, and I'm not sure what it is. I painted it green just to give it some bit of contrast to the rest of the model, because it is quite a blank model. Everything was just painted the one colour on these guns, apart from a couple of the different sights and other bits like that. So then I used European Dark Earth from Vallejo, and this I used to give the entire model a wash and to bring out all the different details that were on the model. I put them on all the different bolt heads and hinges on the front shield, and then on all the little bits where dirt would collect on the actual carriage of the gun. Now in some spots I applied a little bit heavy, but this is no problem because we can wash it down later on with a little bit of water and it'll take that intensity out of the few different bits. This is only possible because I gave it a coat of lacquer between the two layers, so once I had everything painted and was moving on to applying the wash, I put a layer of clear varnish on it. Now here I'm applying chipping, and what I'm doing here is I'm putting on a lighter colour than what the actual Sandgrau was. I lightened it up just a little bit so that it was a little bit more faded if you were to look at it in the sun, and I applied these to areas where you might see chipping, so anything where there's a hard corner where something might hit off it, or if say a crew member had dropped something on the gun at some stage and that had created a chip on the gun. Then once that was all done, I went back with grey paint mixed with a little bit of metallic silver, and I used this to create areas where the paint had completely chipped off and not just been slightly chipped or not chipped all the way through to the steel. It gives a really nice look and it really helps to make your models look worn, and it definitely adds that little bit of detail that was on quite a simple kind of model other than that. Now here you can see me going along. There are two little weld seams that are down both sides of the legs on this gun, where obviously the steel must have been rolled and welded. So I went along and I added some chips along them as well to make it look like that's where they've been kind of hit or bumped off. And this makes sense because this is a raised detail, so things aren't going to catch on where the paint is lower, but it will catch on areas like this. Then here I'm working on the backs of the legs or the stand, and this is where it actually digs into the ground and kind of tries to counter the recoil that the gun creates. So here I added quite heavy chipping, and actually I come back and painted all grey later on, and this signifies where the paint would have chipped off as that gun dug into the ground more and more as more shots were fired. I did the same on the back of the gun shield, and I added a few different chips there to make it look like it was worn. Now here I'm painting the slide of the gun, so where the gun recoils back into with silver, and this is just to show where exposed metal would be, because if this was painted, this would all be stripped off once the gun starts to fire and recoil and take off the paint here. I also used the same silver on the different turning handles to elevate and depress and once again rotate the gun. Here is actually the breech release for the gun, and this is what you would press to open the breech of the gun. I also painted this with silver as well as the breech itself, just because this is what I saw in reference photos and I said I would keep to the same theme. Once again, I go in and add more chips along the model because, you know, the model is not going to be pristine if it's been used. It's going to have a couple of little dents and everything from where things have hit it or where people have left things resting against it. I made sure not to overdo it, as I said though, just to keep that light use effect. Now this model did take quite a bit of time to paint and get it right, just because there's so many very small details behind the gun and everything needs to get a little bit of a wash and weathering so it looks like the gun has been used. Overall, I definitely think this kit was really nice, especially for the price tag of about €7 or €8. I definitely will do one again in the future, some anti-tank gun, just because it's really nice and they're a small quick build. This is a lot quicker to build and paint than say a full tank, so definitely for projects in between other projects, this is the one to go for. I then paint the exposed metal where the gun slide is, and this is just because any exposed metal, regardless of where it is going to rust, at least on the surface, just because there will be some amount of moisture in the air. This gives a really realistic look, especially when you've got the shiny silver and then the rust coming down on top of it. So then I painted the wheels off camera, and this just was pretty much the same as everything else. I used black just for the tyres, and then the same technique with a bit of chipping and a bit of weathering then on the wheels. So I'm going to leave you with some final shots of the model, and if you do like them, please make sure to give a like and subscribe if you want to stay tuned for what's coming next. Anyway guys, thanks for watching.